So there have been a number of attempts to define ecological literacy, some by people within our community, and some by people who are maybe outside of our community. This is just a snapshot of some of the papers that have appeared over the past few decades. First one with Ken Klimo, who's a member of the task force that produced 4DEE, and all the way through some really interesting work that Brooke McBride did based on a survey of ESA members. If you could go to the next slide. So back in 2007, we had over 1,000 members respond to a survey. And one of the questions was, what should people know, feel, or be able to do to be ecologically literate? This was an ESA member survey. And as you can see, there was a preponderance of responses were kind of knowledge questions, but probably the most interesting result of the whole survey was the preponderance of responses that mentioned human ecology or concepts that had to do with the human dimension of our discipline. Unfortunately, we don't have a long-term study of this, of these responses, but we suspect that this was representing a change in the field of ecology, an embracing of a recognition that humans are essential parts of ecosystems and that are teaching needs like this. And we also saw a number of science skills and abilities showing up as prominent in people's definition of ecological literacy. Next slide, please. So as Pam mentioned, a task force was formed initially to develop a list of concepts for ecological curricula at the undergraduate level. And George Middendorf and Bob Pohlad were the leaders of this task force. And over the course of the 4 years since then, we've had a number of meetings, sessions at the annual meetings, and the task force that's listed here made what I think was a really wonderful evolution from thinking of this as a list of concepts to a framework that involved multiple dimensions. And that's why fundamentals concepts is crossed out and 4DEE replaces it. Next slide, please. So interestingly, there have been two other efforts that have informed and inspired the work we've been doing. One is the Vision and Change framework that Carol Brewer's team developed for undergraduate biology education. They emphasize two dimensions, core set of concepts or cross-cutting concepts really, and a set of competencies that biologically educated people should have. At the K-12 level, the next generation science standards have three dimensions where, in addition to cross-cutting concepts and practices or competencies, they also identified disciplinary core concepts. So somewhat inspired by these efforts, but also responding to the preponderance of emphasis on humans as a key focus for ecology education, the framework that we developed has four dimensions, and you can go to the next slide, and I'll briefly describe them. So the four dimensions that we think are essential for ecology education include not just core ecology concepts, such as population, ecosystem, and those concepts that we don't think are going to go away from ecology curricula. But in addition to that, ecology practices, and this is both things like field work and modeling, but also teamwork, a few practices that we think are essential, and cross-cutting themes, ways of thinking, unifying ideas such as evolution, thinking in space, structure, function. But in addition to this, we felt that it was necessary to highlight the human-environment interactions as kind of a distinct but overlapping area of understanding that people need. And this emphasizes both human dependency on the environment and humans' impact on the environment. So things such as climate change and impact, but also ecosystem services and ethics, how to understand the ethical dimension of ecological and environmental problems. So this then becomes the framework that we're promoting as that should frame ecology instruction, at least at the level of a course, hoping that any course that is promoting ecology literacy would would integrate these four dimensions. We recognize that this is a challenge, but it's also a really exciting opportunity to cut new ground and to contribute to the goals that Pam mentioned in terms of leading the field of ecology education in the future.